Hey, what's going on, good people, and welcome to pattern recognition number 7. I'm FIRe Master Ingvar Johannesson from Iceland, and so pleased to be back with another edition. So we're first gonna join a game here. This is a rapid game played by Garry Kasparov with the black pieces, one of the best players in history. And he's playing an exhibition match against a junior from South Africa. And there was a very interesting moment in this game that inspired me to make this video. So after c4, we're sort of transposing into a King's Indian type of structure, a quick bishop g4. Often these bishop g4 moves will undermine the black squares in the center, so we will see the follow-up quite soon. Knight c6 will he's going to castle first, and then we're quickly going to see pressure on the black squares in the center. So as you if you haven't noticed, Kasparov has been playing quite quickly up to this point. Knight c6, targeting the black squares, which will be weakened once black takes on f3. So quick moves by Kasparov. We're going to have h3 quite soon by white, and Kasparov is going to blitz out his moves as he has up to this point. h3, he takes on f3, queen takes back, knight to d7. This attacks the pawn on d4, highlighting what I said, targeting the black squares. And on knight e2. And now all of a sudden Kasparov goes for a think. So what could he be thinking about here? I think I know, and I'm probably going to tell you, but I'll tell you a bit later in the video. So Kasparov played knight b4. We had bishop b1 and c5. Kasparov had a good position, and he went on to win. But we'll come back to the position that we had earlier in the game. So now it's time to dive into our pattern for this video. And in its essence, it's quite a simple one. It's a fork. Everybody knows a fork. Here we have a very simple fork coming up. Black will play knight e5, attacking the king and the queen. Two pieces attacked, a very simple fork. Black will regain his queen and have a winning position. Here we have added more pieces to make it more difficult, but still knight e5 will be strong. Once the knight arrives on the e5 square, it will hit the bishop on d3 and the queen on f3. Fork is in essence a double attack. And here, because of the positioning of the pieces on e4, e2 and e3, the queen actually can't defend the bishop on d3. So this fork is quite strong. Once the queen moves, we are going to take the bishop on d3 and we'll have a winning position. So far so good. Now we're going to expand a little bit further, and we're adding a pawn on d4. Now this means that at first glance our fork on e5 is no longer available because the pawn is covering this square. But in this example we actually have two knights that can go to the e5 square, and once it arrives there, one of them we're gonna hit the queen and the bishop, and like in our previous example, the bishop can't be protected. So what will happen here? White has nothing better than to take. If he moves the queen, we take on d3. So white might as well pocket the knight, which he does. But we have renewed the threat. We're going to win our piece. And the end result of all of this is that we are going to win a pawn, because white had to take on e5 with his d-pawn. So this has netted us a pawn. So now we're going to have another example. So we're actually going to have a look at the game Ljubojevic against Timman, which is one of the earliest examples of this fork, and therefore we're going to call it the Timman fork. So Timman had black here. It's a PIrc defense, and we'll see that this pattern very often crops up in the opening. We have queen a5 here, and actually this is an interesting moment, might be the subject of another video. Black has some ideas here with knight takes e4 because of the pin, and activating the bishop on g7. So white protects e4, but that gives black time to recapture the pawn on c5. White wants to castle, so he brings the queen out to play bishop e3. And after some normal moves, we arrive at a rather similar position. Knight c6, knight back to e2. And here we see the attack on the pawn of b2, and Ljubojevic reacted with c3, closing the diagonal. But this allowed Timman to execute our pattern here. As you know, the bishop on d3 is now unprotected, so we can give this Timman fork on e5. And actually it doesn't matter which knight we move, the end result is the same. White has to take on e5 and the other knight will arrive. So Timman played the d knight to e5, and there's nothing to be done here. We have this great looking fork on the queen on f3 and the bishop on d3. So white has to take, then move his queen, and then he's going to lose the bishop on d3. Timman had to do a little bit of calculation because white can square him a little bit with maybe some ideas of queen d7, but once he takes on e7, he's going to have problems on the e file and with some d5 breaks with all the pieces on the e file. So that's a different matter, but the pattern netted him here more or less a winning position. Moving on to another example. This time the white pieces are controlled by Korchnoi and the black pieces by PIrc. Incidentally, he doesn't use his pet opening, the PIrc defense, which Timman used in the first game. One would think if an opening is named after you, you would use it, but instead we have a Sicilian. And yeah, these examples show that our pattern arises from a variety of openings, and we can sort of call it an opening trap. Slightly unusual Najdorf here with bishop g4. And after some normal moves, we're going to arrive at a position of interest. The interesting thing about this one is after c3, which Korchnoi played, PIrc actually didn't play knight e5. I think he played here rook a to d8. But this further adds to our pattern. Of course, we could have different pieces on e2 and e3. In this case, there's a bishop on e3. And maybe Korchnoi was afraid of this discovery of the bishop. So what happens? Can we play knight e5? Well, once we put the knight on e5, we once again have the fork on the queen and the bishop. White has nothing better than to take. And then queen to g3. And after we take on d3, there's all of a sudden this discovery, a new kind of wrinkle on this pattern. And it's quite possible that PIrc missed his maneuver with queen c5 to e5 here. But this saves the day and means that he should have gone for this knight e5. White probably has nothing better than to take on d3, but then we are going to recapture our piece on h6. We do have a damaged pawn structure, but we do have a stronger minor piece and a strong square on e5. And though the pawns are doubled, it is an extra pawn, and black is better here. So this is what I should have done. Our next example, we just jump straight into the position. And although we look at the position always from white perspective, usually it's black that's hitting with its pattern. Of course, it's possible with either color, but it just so happens to arrive from a variety of openings for black. This time a Sicilian. And we notice here that the bishop on d3, it's protected by the pawn on c2. Here, Kramnik, with the black pieces, played a very cunning move. Rook to b8. He was playing in a rapid game against Viswanathan Anand. And this sets things up nicely for our trick. Anand castled here, but that fought for it. And the punishment was swift. Black to play here. Of course he played, we all know it. He put an knight on e5. But again, this is slightly different. Let's see what happened after takes. Queen moves. Now we see the point. After black takes on d3, now the knight on b3 is unprotected, and that was the point of rook b8. Utilizing the knowledge of the pattern to set this up quite nicely, and this is a winning position. So now, to end things up, we come back to this moment in the Kasparov game we saw at the beginning. He had this position. He thought for 30 seconds and he played knight b4. Now why didn't he play knight to e5? We now know that this is quite possible and is actually a winning continuation. I think Kasparov actually saw this move, knight to e5. And he knew about it. Black gets a completely winning position. The queen must move, knight takes d3 is with check. And white will even lose further material on b2. But I think that Kasparov was well aware of the situation. He was playing an exhibition match against a 16-year-old junior, and I think he didn't want to inflict a short embarrassing win on his opponent. So he took the 30 seconds here to sort of bring himself to play an inferior continuation, although he still had a better position and won the game. But yeah, an instructive pattern, 95 here wins the game. And I hope you enjoyed this. See you later, guys. Bye bye.